Sandra Hunter, and I'm one of the master gardeners, and I'm going to talk about seed packets and how you can tell if your seeds are still viable. First of all, I'm hoping everybody took some seeds from the library back there. So if you'll just grab one of those, please, and turn it over on the back. Okay, for some of you, this will be very basic. You probably planted your garden before and you know what to find on your seed packet. But what it will tell you is how deep you want to plant the seed, how close each plant needs to be to each other, and how wide your rows are supposed to be. I garden in the community garden lot, a plot there, and so I tend to squeeze my rows a little closer together because I have less room. And it hasn't really made a difference, okay? So if you know the depth, also if you look on here, it says days to germination. So when you plant this seed, if it isn't up in 8 days, you might think, well, maybe I should plant another seed because maybe it's not going to come up. Some of them come up quicker if it's warmer. Temperature has a lot to do with it. Oftentimes your seed packet will tell you if it's a cold weather plant or a warm weather plant. And usually all your brassica type like cabbages and lettuces and spinach. Yeah, spinach and broccoli. All those can be planted earlier. Some of them will take frost. Peas. You can plant peas as early as you can fix your soil to get out there and get them. They can take, because they're a cold weather plant. If you stuck a tomato out there 2 weeks before frost, for the last frost, you won't have a tomato because it's a hot weather. So you kind of need research. You can go online and you can find out what's warm weather, what's cool weather plants. So it'll tell you the planting depth, days to harvest, 70. You think, okay, I put the seed in, 70 days later I should have a crop. That's for when it's germinated. So you would count back, it says 70 days to harvest. It took me 7 days for it to come up. So it would actually be 77 or 78, okay? And I happen to pick a pumpkin which needs a lot of space. And it says 18 inches between plants and 2 to 3 feet between rows. It also will tell you some of them. I have some I brought from my house, and it doesn't tell me the zone. So not all the packets that you get will give you all the information that you're getting on some of these packets. So, and this one will tell you the date it was sold or why they wanted to sell them. And it's on the bottom. And it says 4/21. Okay. Which I'm going to tell you that's probably a good seed. Okay. And I'm going to show you how you check for seed viability, which means how many of your seeds are going to come up. This packet of watermelon seeds says 2014. This sack, this one says, which hasn't been opened yet, that comes from mine, 2009. Okay? So, am I going to plant these and expect a harvest? How can I figure out if my seeds are viable? So what I'm going to do, I took a paper towel and I wrote on it Klondike watermelon that was in 2014. So I'm not a very good mathematician, so I do a lot of things by tens because I can figure out percentages by tens. Okay? So I'm going to wet my paper towel down, because we know seeds have to have water to germinate. And out of my packet of many seeds, I'm going to pick 10. So I'm going to put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, because remember I'm not a mathematician, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, I have them here. And how is this going to tell me how viable my seeds are? Does anybody know?
How many crops?
Okay, however many of these that will germinate, because I did 10, if only 1 germinates, that means this pack only has a 10% chance of germination. So, check out this one if I don't get very many. I saved it for naught, okay? And how I'm gonna do this, I'm going to take, I've marked these, I've got my 10 seeds in, and this isn't a very good jar, big jar. I should have got a bigger one, but unfortunately I recycled them to my sister, so she'll fill them again for me the next year. And if you do this really well, they'll stay up and they'll be along the jar. And you'll be able to see if they're germinating or not. But because I'm cheap and only had 1 jar left, my 2009, I'm going to do the same thing with. And I'm betting for a watermelon, 2009 is too old. But I'll have you know that last year, one of my other master gardeners gave me some tomatoes from 2004. And they all germinated, tomato seeds. So some seeds will last longer. And it also depends on how you store them. I stored my stuff in plastic one time and kept them out in my garage. And it kind of cooked them, so they didn't. Glass or paper is better than plastic. And where you put them. So again, I'm going to do my 10 seeds. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. And it tells me that these are going to germinate when I read it. 7 to 10 days. So in 10 days, I will take these, and I'm just going to set these on my counter. I'm not going to give them excessive heat or whatever. And it would be, like I say, a lot nicer with a larger jar. And since I just have the round cap for it, I want to put, if you save your mayonnaise jar or something like that, and after a while you can take these out and you can see it. Some of them might even be able to see if they germinate. And by sealing them in here, the moisture that's in here will stay, and this is enough for them. I won't have to open it again to do it. So that's how I can check for seed viability. One of the other things I'm going to talk about is how I store my seeds. Lynette, who is one of these very structured master gardeners who do things well, has a box, and she marks on with different colored pencils what the date is, so she can just pick it up and look at it, like this is 2/14, this is 2/9, this is 2/21, and she keeps them in a box so she can look at them and try. And I actually kept these in my husband's old coffee can, a plastic coffee can, and to go through them today, to pick them out tonight. And I was really surprised to find a 2009 in there, I'll tell you. And I have a tendency to put it in my bucket when I go to the garden, and I water indiscriminately, and sometimes I hit my bucket. So some of these seeds may not be viable, because if you look at this one and how it's wrinkled, at some point in time, this one was watered. And it depends on it. But I like to buy seeds every year, and it's very wasteful, because seeds nowadays are a lot more expensive than they used to be. So if you know how to store them, you know how to check for viability, you can use your seeds from years past. Okay. And I know tomatoes last quite a long time. So, anybody have any questions? Okay, I know how to find out whether, oh, Heather.
So what did you tell us? You put it in a plastic coffee can. Are we not supposed to use plastic?
Well, you could, but mine were kind of small and I just stuck them in. Because I kept them in the paper bags, they should be okay. Okay, had I transferred them into some plastic containers. And you can go and get seed jars and things, which I'm sure someone is going to talk about on getting your seeds, or are we doing that tonight? How you can harvest seeds from your own produce if they're, okay, yes.
So after you have some of them that are germinating, do you just throw them away, or do you plant them?
I plant them. Because and these are watermelons, and this is kind of early to be doing it. But I have some grow lights at home, and I would just transplant them into, like the ones that you buy, the cells and things that you can do. I would transplant it in, and because it's so early, I may have to transplant it 2 more times before I can put it out. But I wouldn't just throw these away.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Is there an ideal temperature to store your seeds at?
Well, I know I can't tell you the ideal temperature. Does anybody in here know?
Cool to cold.
Pardon?
Cool to cold.
Right. Like mine, I store them in my garage, and it gets pretty hot in the summertime, so viability. You can put them, I have some really beautiful pink ruffled poppies that have been growing down in the garden in my plot for about 20 years now. And I collect the seeds for that, and I store them in my refrigerator until I plant them again. And I put a little piece of paper in there the year I did them, to do it. And so I store them in so I would say, as Jody says, the cooler the better. Don't freeze them, but the cooler the better. Any other questions? Okay.
Well, thank you, Sandra. So next I want to welcome everybody we're gonna try to be doing classes every month. We're gonna hold them here, so just watch, if you put in there, we'll email you, or watch our Facebook page. We're also gonna do it in the Wright Library down there too. So if you can't make this one, we'll have one after that. And we're trying to learn how to film too, so that if you can't make any of them, you can be able to film or watch the film. Check that. Are we putting it on Facebook?
Probably on Facebook. Our thoughts are that we would like to have a catalog of these classes. So we are trying to figure that out, how to do that. So this is the first step. So you guys are being recorded.
And this is Mandy here.
Hi.
Gonna go over some stuff too about the library and then the planner and then I'm gonna pass these. We have enough for probably each table to share, and she'll go through their stuff.
So first off, the seed library, I don't know how many of you have heard of it before. but we house the seed library in our office, and we also are going to have a branch of it down at the Wright Library. So initially, when it had started, we asked people to save seeds and bring seeds back into our office to replenish what we had in our library. The last couple of years, people have been extremely generous with bringing their seeds to us. Walmart brought us a whole bunch of seeds. Rain Gardens, Baumgars, and Tractor Supply have also donated all of their seeds. So you can still save your seeds and bring them to our office and donate them to the seed library, but it's not as necessary to keep it going because it is sustaining itself because of the donations. So this is just a small piece of what we have. Very, very small piece of what we have. We have so many seeds, it's crazy. So please tell your friends, come down and get seeds. We have a bunch and we would love to share them with you. So you guys all have this, Clyde's Garden Planner. So if you would take it out.
Does anybody need one? Everybody's got one? Everybody has one?
So this garden planner, does everybody have one? So you'll notice on this garden planner, there's a spring side and there's a fall side. So for our purposes tonight, we'll just talk about the spring side. So if you look at the spring side, you'll also see that there is a slider on it. So the slider, actually, what you would do is you would take that slider and you would slide it over where the red line is, and you want to take that red line to your average last frost date. Last frost. Correct. Last frost, because we're on spring. So we're going to say May 24th. I wish March, wouldn't that be wonderful? Yeah. May 24th. Well, my mother-in-law would say don't plant anything before June 1st, but May 24th is the last frost date, traditionally the average date. So you can see on that, where that red line is, to the left of that red line, you'll see some letters FP and SI. FP is when you would first plant those plants outside. And you'll see the plants on the left-hand side all the way over. So your onion sets, it's saying that you could plant those outside April 12th. And then further down, you'll see like on broccoli, the SI, that's when you could start those seeds inside. So you don't want to start your plants too early because, like Sandra said, you might end up transplanting them several times before you actually make them to your garden. So also another handy little thing is the little green check marks off to the right. That is when you can expect your harvest. So you should be able to start harvesting on those green check marks. Yes?
Okay, I'm lost. So
Okay.
can you kind of run down, I was trying to take notes and I
No, you're fine.
didn't write that fast. Can you go back to, you said FP was first plant
First plant outside, yep,
outside.
yep.
Okay, and then, what,
SI is start inside,
start inside, okay.
yep.
I know, but I can't.
And you'll also see all the way over to the right in the blue ink, those are the companion plants.
Okay.
So we want our plants to be friends. So over here in the blue is you'll find your plants friends off to the right. And it also has on here like how deep to plant them and how much space they need in between the plants. So this thing is just an amazing tool. It's very handy to see, okay, good, when can I start planting? Because if you're like me, you get excited. this class is making me go, oh, maybe I can start my watermelon inside right now. So it is exciting, but we do want you to have the best information available so that you don't start your stuff inside too early. You do want to follow that frost date. And then also on the other side, since the other side is fall, so the same thing, we'll change that average first fall frost, and we're going to say the 13th of September. So it's a very short window there. So you can also see the start inside. The LP is the last planting. So those are your last planting dates. So if you wanted to do a fall crop of spinach, you could plant that on around July 19th, July 26th, right in there. That way you could expect your fall crop of spinach. So I promise you guys will love this tool. It's very useful. I use it all the time, and I always recommend it to people, especially when they're starting with seeds. Anytime somebody comes into our office, and anybody can come in and grab one of these. So if you know somebody that would like one, have them stop by the extension office, and we can give them one. The other thing I want to talk about tonight is, you guys all have one of these on your table. So this is kind of just something I do. I have a kind of old school trapper keeper. I don't think they even make those anymore. It has a full zipper and everything. So I keep my seeds in it. I also keep all of my garden notes and everything in there together. That way I know what I planted last year, what worked, what didn't work, what I totally despised and I'm never gonna plant again. Have that wrote down in there so I don't forget. But this, I plant in raised beds. And so in my raised beds, I've got, mine are actually pallets. And so we took pallets and we cut them in half. And then we light bolted them together and we put fabric in them. And then we put soil in them. And that's what I garden in. And the reason I do that is because we have all yard, and it was the one way I could garden without my husband getting crabby. So, anyways, this is my garden. So I have north over here, and then I put my year on here. And what I do is, again, I get excited when I get out to the garden, and I kind of lose my mind a little bit. So this is one way I keep from doing that. I know that when I go out to my garden and I see my first box and I'm really excited and, oh, I'm gonna plant my beans in it. Well, no, you're not gonna plant your beans in it because you're gonna follow this map. So what I do is I know, okay, this bed is potatoes, then I've got tomatoes and I've got peppers. But like Sandra had talked about, she plants closer together to maximize her space. I also want to do multiple crops in one year. So you'll notice you have a pink slip, a pink post-it on top of a yellow one. So when I first plant this bed, my first planting in this bed will be half radish and half lettuce. And I know I'm not gonna mess this up because this has to be this way, because when those crops are done, I'm gonna come in and I'm gonna plant beans and cucumbers in there after that. So I know I'm not gonna mess that bed up. These other ones, you know, I can switch my potatoes and my tomatoes if I want to. But I know I'm going to keep my other ones that are multiple crops together because I'm definitely gonna follow this. Same thing with this one. I have spinach and lettuce. And then I know when those two are done, I'm gonna come in and I'm gonna plant peas. And then I'm gonna divide the rest of the bed with radish and carrots. I do rotate my crops every year. And the reason you do that, some plants are susceptible to some disease. And so if you can keep that rotation going, you can lessen your chance of that disease happening with those plants. I'm never doing potatoes again, so we might as well just take that and post it right off there. I don't have very good luck with potatoes. I don't know what's wrong with me, but I just can't grow them. So that's what I do. I also keep it in the sleeve because, like Sandra, I get excited and I'm watering stuff, and then pretty soon my Post-its are wet and my garden plan is now a mess. So I do keep it in here, and that kind of keeps it, it keeps it clean. It keeps it, my dirty gloves and everything from touching it. I know I've still got my plan and I'm gonna follow my plan. And then also what I do is I keep this, I'll take this after I'm done planting and I'll put it inside in my trapper keeper. Because then I know next year when I go to when I plan my garden and I get my Post-its out and I'm making my plan again for this year, I know how I planted it last year, and I'm going to rotate my crops, and then I'm still gonna keep the Post-its together where I can do multiple crops in one bed. Okay. Does anybody have any questions? Yep,
Okay, so the pink ones,
yes.
how do you understand when the yellow is done and you'll be able to plant pink, or is
So like for this one, I've got radish and lettuce. So my radish, whenever my radishes are done, or when I decide that they're done, then I'm gonna go in and plant my beans. And with lettuce, the same thing, because 2 people can only eat so much lettuce before I'm tired of it, or it's just done. It's gotten too warm and I've decided I'm done. I'm gonna do my cucumbers now.
Also, I think that both radish and lettuces are colder weather crops.
Colder
You can start them earlier, and then beans, they need to be warmer.
Yep,
So you would,
Yeah.
your radishes and lettuce would be close to being done.
yep,
And you just pull those out, right? Just pull them right out of the ground and you're done with them and then plant your new.
yep, I'm done with them. I'm just gonna, mix my dirt up a little bit, and then I'm gonna go right in and plant my other crop right over the top of that. Yep.
Do you do composting?
I'm working on it. I want to, my husband does not want to. We live out in the country. He thinks it's going to bring in all kinds of varmints and everything else, but I haven't figured out a way to sneak that in yet without him noticing, so I'm working on it. Skunks? Have you ever had skunks in it? Yeah. No? Okay. Okay. Yep.
Don't put animal products in the environment, you don't mess with it.
Don't put animal products and then they won't mess with it.
Not in the country, yep.
So one thing that happened to me last year, this was a new one on me. So we like to go camping a lot in the summer. So we rigged up wine so that we have it on a timer, and so our beds are all getting watered. And I think just because of the drought, we have deer that come in. And the year before that, they ate all my peppers, so I was very discouraged with them about that. But last year, we came home from camping, and I went to check on my garden, and my lines were all stretched and pulled. And the deer, I'm guessing, were looking for water and probably could hear it. And so they went in there and they pulled these lines and they stretched them. I mean, I couldn't believe it. We couldn't pull them apart like a deer could have done it. It was a little devastating, and then I felt bad, and so then I started watering the deer. So, yeah. Any other questions? Well, please come down and see us at the Extension office. We've got tons of seeds, and we would love to have you. So, thank you.
Thanks, Mandy.
So before everybody leaves tonight, we have some free books up here. So when you get ready to leave, there's some different ones, and we're gonna have some of the right ones too. And then also we have a door prize, and when we're done, we're gonna give out tickets to draw for the, I don't know if everybody's seen the air plants up there. We're gonna give away 3 of those, so make sure you get your tickets before you leave. And our next person that's gonna talk is Lynette. She's gonna talk about garden journals, and that's the white packet book. Does anybody have any questions so far? And if you have any suggestions for classes or anything that you want to learn or something, send us a message on Facebook or email the Mandy, and then maybe we can add those into as we do our talks through the months and stuff. So here's Lynette here.
Hi, everybody.
She's our famous one for everything, puts all the hours in.
They just want me to keep going, they just pat me. Anyway, I'm Lynette, and thank you all for coming out tonight. We're glad you all made it. It's kind of blustery out there. So I was selected to talk about garden journaling and why we need to do it, and why you want to do it. So I'm going to tell you how to start a garden journal. And I was just kind of looking online, and I found the template that you all have, and we just printed it out for you. It's got a lot of good things in there. You can make your journal just out of a notebook, or you can do one of those big fancy things. So, but we just thought we'd give you these so you can get a start. So I hope that you will learn tonight how to start a garden journal and why you want one. And I'll give you some tips on what to write, how to structure it, and how to get the most out of it. And journaling basically just is a record, a way of keeping records of all things pertaining to your garden. Even if your garden just consists of planter boxes or grow bags or flower pots or planter box, things like that, it's still worth it to do a garden journal. So it doesn't matter how big or small your garden is. You can grow, things like perennials, annuals, vegetables, shrubs, berries, trees. You can keep a garden journal just for trees and shrubs. So, there's no real aspect of gardening that can't be journaled that you can't learn from. So, let me tell you, my number one reason for garden journaling is I always think I'm going to remember, and I never do. It's amazing how much I lose in a year. I think, oh man, that was so good, I'm gonna do that again. And then I'll remember, what was it, what variety, where to get it, I just forget. And then I have learned over the years that writing down the things that were a total mistake, they're invaluable. It's your journal, nobody's gonna know you flopped, nobody sees in my journal how many screw-ups I have done. And there's many, but those are the things that I learned from. And then I know not to waste my money, because sometimes gardening isn't that cheap. And you can learn a lot by keeping a journal and keeping a journal of your failures. So I want to emphasize that. So anyway, you can learn from past years and be able to make the necessary changes for the future. You can grow more healthy, productive, and efficient garden by using information that you keep track of. You can see how much you've learned over the years and how much your garden has grown. You won't forget nearly as much, that's me, as you can just refer back to what you wrote down, such as growing season, pest problems, ideas, and other thoughts. And have a place to dream. Oh, I love this part of the year. That's my number 2 reason for garden journaling. This is the time of year where after the holidays and the winter has settled in and you've got nothing to look forward to, but your seed catalogs are starting to come in. Or you'll see those things in the garden section of the stores, and you get that little, I want to do something. Well, now's a good time to plan, to just plan your garden. And, go, like Sandra said, go through your seeds that you have from other years and organize those. And throw out the ones that you don't think are going to be viable after you've done the test or whatever. And so you can start organizing and you can start journaling that. And it gives you a way to get involved in your garden months before we'll ever be able to do anything. So that's my number 2 reason, is to have a place to dream. And then a lot of us, we're really into journaling. I'm not so much, but I've learned to do it for gardening. But a lot of people like bullet journals and do the art journals and all these kind of things. So it's a great way in the winter time when you're feeling dreary that you can just be really imaginative. So, so a garden journal is whatever you want it to be, and your journal will be unique to you. You have to write the things that mean something to you. Like mine, I take notes and then I go back and I'm like, I don't even know what I meant. So, you try that, it'll just be your, whatever you decide to do. And you can journal about anything. Like, what did you, while you were journaling and planning and dreaming of this garden, did it make you happy? Did you just dream about it? I mean, I just put a smiley face on that page the day that I was dreaming of it. Because just the journaling and being able to sit and think about it made me happy. So I write little notes like that too, on how the journal made me feel. Let's see. So here's some tips on journaling. First, be consistent. It's not going to do much if you never use it and never write in it. So you have to actually use the journal. Once you get your journal, commit to writing it consistent amount of times throughout the year and your gardening season. It could be just a few minutes every day, or once every other week, or do whatever works for you, but do it consistently. Like if you only want to write down a little synopsis of what you did that month, that's fine. Just make sure you do it every month. So, but I recommend doing it more than that. Make it your own and write whatever you want. Write as little as much as you like. You can keep drawings of your garden and landscaping dreams. Pull out your photos from magazines and tape them in. Boy, I highly recommend that. I love to do that. You know what, when you're a kid and you cut out the stuff from the Christmas catalog that you want, it's good to kind of have a vision board. I go through the seed catalogs or my garden magazines and I cut out things that I want. And then I research to see what's in that picture, and then I try to figure out where I can order that plant or get that plant or order those seeds. Because, you know, I don't want to reinvent the wheel. If I see a picture of this beautiful mixed bed and some of the seed catalogs and plant catalogs will tell you what's in this picture, it's already done there for you. So I just cut that right out. And I put the article in there that talks about what's in there, and then I figure out how to get it or where I can put it in my yard. So, you know, I'm number one for cutting out pictures and kind of like a dream vision board. This is an old garden journal that I had in 2018, and I just got this at the dollar store. It's a little small, but in this one, I started out because onions are the first thing you can plant. I usually plant on tax day, April 15th. So in this one, I like to order the onion plants. Instead of the little round sets, I get the ones that have already started to grow, and then they kept them dormant, and then they just jump right up and grow. So I cut out of my catalog the names of the onions that I wanted to try. And like right here, I cut out this little piece of the catalog too, and it says, store your onions at 45 to 55 degrees and at 60 to 70% humidity. Anything that I think is going to help me, something that I'll forget. I just cut that out of the magazine and taped it right in there. And then over the years, like I said, this is an older journal. I have learned that out of all these varieties of onions that I've tried, it must be 2, 4, 6, 8 varieties. I'm down to 2. So now I know when I order my onions, I don't order all these varieties. I was dreaming big and wanted to grow those beautiful Walla Wallas, but so I ordered a thing. Comes in a bundle of 75. I cannot eat 75 Walla Walla onions because they go bad in 1 month. So in my area, I have learned I like the Spanish, the yellow Spanish, these cobras, and I like the sterling onion, which is a white onion, and this will last until I start planting my garden again. They just hang out in my garage all winter long. So I get my onions from a certain catalog place, and like I said, I've learned over the years that out of these 8, these are the 2 that I go with year after year. So, you know, that's like an example of what I did. And then, as you can see, I was bored, I guess, in that winter. I draw little pictures and do little doohickey bobs and talk about how exciting it was exciting, what I ordered and what I did, and I highlight things and make a little chart, because I'm kind of artsy and I like to do that stuff. But, so that's just an example of, how you compare things down with what you're thinking. Okay, so I have, in your little book there, or your booklet thing, it has a layout pages so you can lay out your garden kind of like what Mandy talked about. You can use that for Mandy's type of design too. You can draw out whatever you kind of think your garden shape is and how big it is-ish, and then plan that, actually plot it out. Write down any pest problems that you might have had over the years and what you did to fix it. That's real important. That's a good thing to learn. And I also, if I have pest problems, I try to write down where I think they came from. Is it something that flew in on the wind? Is it something that was contaminated at a greenhouse? Because sometimes you'll get tomato virus on a plant you got from a certain greenhouse. And then it's not like I would not go to that greenhouse, but I would know what to look for. I'll actually take a picture and put it in my thing, that this is what the plant looked like when I bought it, and when I planted it, and this is the mess it turned out to be. So, you can add pictures like that. You can also keep notes of how much your plant produced. Like, did you have a certain variety of seed or plant that just went crazy? That just produced way more than you could ever imagine? Or did you try something and it was underwhelming? So take notes and keep track of how much your family consumed, because it's ridiculous to grow something that your people don't even eat. Now, if you like to grow and give it away, you can grow something for others because you know your grandma likes Brussels sprouts and you hate them. Well, you can still grow some things, but generally don't plant your garden just because you like the plant or you like it. If you don't eat it, it's just you went to a lot of work and a lot of wasted water and a lot of time for something that your family's not going to eat. So, like she said about the Clyde's planner, record your first and last frost dates. Draw out plants for your garden and landscape. Jot down plants that you see and are inspired by, like in those catalogs. Or when I go on vacation, you take pictures and you see plantings and planting beds. I get right in there and I take pictures, and I'm on my phone. I don't even have to find them out. But I try to identify what that is. So take your pictures, and then keep records of your weather events. Like year before last, we had all those crazy hail things, and things were doing really good. So record, that nothing you planted was a mistake. The weather just beat you up. You can't help that. So you might be willing to try the same things again, even though they didn't work out that year, and hope that you don't have the weather. And then this last year we had drought and extreme heat. Just sometimes it's just the weather that gets you. Write down all your soil conditions every year and any amendments you made. Anything that you've added to your soil that you need to keep track of. And if you do parts of it one year and parts of it another year, sometimes I have a tendency to, I'll amend this section, and then the next year I'll amend this section. And I try to make a record of if I saw it improving. Sometimes it doesn't. I might put all the work in, it didn't really help anything. So then I'm like, well, is it the weather? Is it a bug? Why didn't that work? And I try to analyze that. You can, if you would like to, you can take notes of birds and the pollinator insects that you see in your garden. I'm really into that. I have, maybe you've taken the class with us here where we've made the bee and butterfly watering plates where you put the pebbles and things in the tray and you add just enough water so the insects can land on the rocks and get drinks without drowning. I try to keep records of all the pollinators, and if more and more are coming to my garden because we need those. And like I said, write down all your lessons learned and mistakes that you made. And so, let's see. I did want to tell you, for those of you that really like to do things more online, there are garden journal apps that you can download and just keep your records that way. I kind of like to look back, and I'm old school, so I don't do that as much, but you certainly could do that. So hopefully I've convinced you to start your own garden journal, and all you have to do is get to writing in there. So let's see, I was going to try to tell you a few more things that I like. I write in my journal, what's the name of the plant seed, or what's the name of the catalog, the company that I ordered my stuff from. I write that down, and then I say what I ordered, and when I ordered it, and when I received it, because sometimes I get, like I said, we all get a little spring fever crazy, and I'll order it, and I forget, and somehow it got lost, and I just never received it. And then when it comes time to plant, I thought, didn't I order that? And I can't remember. So I write that all down in my journal, and then I always take the receipt into my journal. If you get a receipt with your packaging, just take that in there, and then you can kind of keep track of how, if things are going up or down, or what company has a better rate for the same type of product. So, I think receipts are a good way to do that. And then you can also check your receipts over the years and say, well, I planted this, but I planted too much, and I could cut my gardening budget in half by not doing so much of this, and I'd like more of that. So like say for instance, you have $50 for seeds, and you can kind of compare what you did. So when you purchase from the greenhouse or the nurseries, You wanna journal the name of the store, what you bought, the condition of the plants, pests or diseases associated with the purchase, and success or failure of those plants, and the receipt. For pots and containers, I really like to journal about my pots and containers quite a bit, because sometimes I'll see combinations of things that I just love. You can always do, your spillers, fillers, and thrillers, and so I write that down. This was my filler plants in this pot, and what color combinations I use. And I like to use like the color wheel, like that blue and orange things go good together, yellow and purple go good together, red and green. So, I try to artistically arrange them. So my color combinations and good companion choices. When I first started gardening, I just put everything in the pot that I liked. And it didn't matter if one was a succulent and only wanted to be watered once a month, and the other thing was a petunia that drank every third day. Those are all the things you learn. And then write down your mistakes. We've had plenty at my house. I learned that I spent a lot of money on beautiful begonias and had these beautiful planter boxes, window boxes. My husband made out of old crib parts, spindles, oh, they were beautiful. I planted them all in there. And I did learn that, I probably spent $100 per planter box to make them gorgeous. And I learned that one side of my porch did great, and the side where the wind comes whistling through, begonias don't like wind. And I learned that. So I learned not to put those types of plants on that side. Record when you tilled your garden. Like if you did it in the fall, you might not want to do it in the spring, or vice versa. So, anything that you do to work your soil, when you put that compost in there, and when you till it. And, because sometimes you just don't remember. And sometimes you think, well, why doesn't it look like I tilled it? Sometimes you didn't till it deep enough or whatever. So anything about what you've done to work your soil. Always remember not to work your soil when it's wet. Don't go out there and be tilling and digging in your garden when it's wet, because you're just gonna wreck the texture of the soil. Always wait till it's dry enough to be worked. You should be able to reach down in there and have loose soil. If you work it when it's wet, it's not good for you. It works all the oxygen out and it just changes the texture of your soil, so don't do that. Be sure to write down your fertilizing schedule, what fertilizer brand and what form it was. Was it granular? Was it, a water soluble? I like to write down the brand because I find out some I like, some I don't, where I bought it, how I applied it, the results, and the receipt for that too. I always put the receipt in there so that I know this fertilizer did the same thing for half the price. So this is the one that I really like. I actually tape or staple or glue the seed packets right in my journal. All my seed packets, because I tried that thing where, my mama used to just put them on a stick in the garden and mark their rows that way, but they get wet, they get ruined, and that never works. So what Sandra was talking about with your seed instructions, how far apart to put them, how deep to plant them, how, their harvest dates and stuff. They're much safer in your book than they would be out there getting the weather on them. So I actually cut them apart. I either cut them front to back, or I cut them apart so they open like a book, and I can see the front picture, and then I can see the instructions on the back side. Plant markers, I love to do this. I just started doing this, and I thought, why didn't I think of that before? But the little plastic picks that go and identify all your plants? Hopefully some kid hasn't went through the greenhouse and switched them all around, and you're growing Brussels sprouts when you really want it broccoli. But anyway, most of the time they're right. So I take those plastic plant things and I just staple them right to my page. Or double stick tape works good. And that way, because if I mark my plants, they get broken or the sun fades them. And then I can't read it. If they stay in my book, I can go back through my journal and I can put a big old star by the one that just was really worked out good for me. But if it's all faded and broken and packed off in the garden, I start out. So just take those things right in there and then use some other kind of plant marker to actually mark your plant. If you need to mark your plant or your row or something, use some other way to do it, not the plant marker that you got from the greenhouse, because, it's safer in your book. Okay, so maybe you have been going through your little packet here of things we printed off for you today. There's also one in here that I find really valuable. My husband finds this really valuable. There's a page in here somewhere for like a canning log, which is really good. When you harvest, you can write down when you can what you can and how much you did. And, you know, like right now, I know I have to beg my grandson and my husband, please don't plant any more beets because we can't eat as much as they plant. I have got jars of beets stacking up down there, so I know we could live 2 years on the beets that we have. So that's a good way to know that, but it's good to know. Also, you can record in your journal what you dehydrated and what you froze, and those are really good things, so that you'll know, you know, any of that. So, you have the plant plots in there, or the land plots, so you can do that. There's just all kinds of good information. Yeah, here's a freezer log, the canning log, and then preparing for the next season. So if you've been flipping through there and you have any questions, now's a good time to ask, maybe I can help you. Any questions? Yeah?
Have you noticed the greenhouses help at all around here, extending grow time?
Say that again?
Greenhouses extending grow time, growth?
Yes, absolutely.
Do they?
Yeah, like a high tunnel or a greenhouse or any type of thing will work. Even a cold frame, like in the fall, you can plant things, you know, like just an old window, but any of those things. And that's all, you could just do a whole bunch of journaling just on that alone.
You can start earlier.
Yeah, start earlier. You can start growing things in March you know, you can start growing your pole crops in March and April. And you can extend it way until, my grandson was still harvesting tomatoes well into October, late October, before they finally got too cold, and just about Halloween before they died down. So those are all the things to do. Yeah, anything else on that? You're not gonna be able to keep, some things, but you can't, you know, it's only good until like October, you know, unheated, because it's still Wyoming and it's still cold. But you know how like you have that plant of tomatoes that's just all folded, they're all green? Right. You don't want to freeze. Also, a greenhouse or a high tunnel or some type of covering will help you get them to ripen. But they're not gonna stay alive all winter, they're eventually gonna freeze. But if you're trying to ripen something, or if you wanna start, if you're into like rotating your crops, and you start things early in the spring, in your high tunnel or your hoop house or whatever, you can have those crops already grown before it's even time to put regular stuff in the garden. You know, because like you can't, I don't plant any beans or tomatoes until the 1st of June or anything like that. So anyway, and this year in my, last year I got, this time of year I got a little crazy and I got this red colored plastic tube that you put over your tomato plants, and then you can twist the top shut. And it was called a tomato automator tray that you put at the bottom. And it was a little tray about this big, and it had 4 divots, like little legs that stuck down, poked down into the hole. And in the center was a hole where the stem of the tomato comes up, and it has a split. So you could just twist it like this. I planted my tomato, put this tomato automator around it, plunk it in the ground with those little things. And then you water in this tray, and when the tray fills up, you've given it a half a gallon of water. So I'd fill it up twice. If I had any fertilizer I wanted to use, I could put it in that tray and it would drip down through the holes in these little legs, and it automatically fertilized. And then I had this plastic tube, red colored plastic tube that went around my cages. And I thought, you know, this was just something I kind of put in my husband's Christmas stocking, because he has plotted one community garden and I have one at the other. We have a competition going on. So I wanted my tomatoes better than his. So I thought, I'm just gonna try this. And he laughed at me, but I had the best dang tomatoes this year. So that was an experiment, a total experiment. And I thought it was just a gimmick, but it worked for me. Now maybe it was because we had a hotter than Hades year. You know, it was really hot. And there were a few days that I had to open the top of my tomato thing because I thought they were frying alive in there. And, you know, it was 104 and I didn't want to be wrapped in plastic, so I figured I would let it wait. But I swear I had the most tomatoes I've ever had. So, you know, write down your experiments, things that you try. And now watch this next year, it'll be totally different, you know, totally flop. But I did learn last year that I'm going to do that again. So, you know, any of your successes, failures, write them down and go with them. Any other questions? Oh, sure. Sure. Okay, so I order from Dixondale Farms. All right, and the shipping is usually more than what you're getting, but I get the plants, And I think in a bundle, you get 75 items. So if you have a neighbor that wants to take half, or you can third it. But these are the ones I like. I like these two right here. I like this Cobra, which is a yellow onion.
And if you're
But
a
this is
master
my
gardener, we do it
This
as a
is my
group.
favorite.
Sometimes we order
Yeah.
a big order of them and then we kind of split or do whatever,
Okay, and
so.
write down Dixon
You
Dale
know, and
Farms.
Mandy, and we can probably add everybody to it too.
Dixon Dale. Great
That way
county.
everybody,
So,
the more
yeah.
you
But
order.
like
that
I said,
way-
I, journaled all this and I learned that there's.
Okay, so, does anybody else have any other questions? Okay, so we got one more, this one's a hands-on, activity. We're gonna bring the table up, we're gonna put it in the middle. She's gonna kind of show you a little bit how to do it, then each person's gonna, if you want, you can do one at your own station too. We'll have to share the glue and everything, because we have a big crowd today, but we're gonna bring the table in the middle. She's gonna kind of talk a little bit, if you need to get up and kind of look, then we're gonna try to wing it a little bit here in the middle. Want me to grab it? You're doing good.
I'm not that old.
Well.
I'm gonna say, I was never offered to
For her. So does anybody have any questions on anything so far that we've done? We're good? Now. And again, when we're done, don't forget to look at the books up here. And I see she passed out the tickets for the drawings and then the survey sheet too. So here's Jody here. She's another good master gardener.
I give you an extra one?
So,
Okay.
if you're
And
interested.
you want to say better.
No, that's the one.
Not old, right? Hi.
Our compost garden.
Yeah, so we're gonna talk about seed tapes and how you can make your own. Is everyone here familiar with seed tapes, or a few of you? I don't know if you've seen them in the catalogs. You buy a few seeds for a lot of money, but they have strategically placed your seed stuck onto this little piece of paper, just the right spacing, and it will be in a tight roll, and you just roll it out in your garden and cover it up. And, and it is super convenient. And the thing is, it's also very expensive, and it's so easy to make your own. And with weather like this, and if you're stuck in the house, it's a fun project. It's fun for kids, it's fun for every age people. If you have arthritis in your hands, you can still make the seed tapes and still using the toothpicks, which we'll do. You can use a pencil or whatever, and then instead of having to mess with those tiny little seeds and trying to sprinkle them out evenly, which never happens, you'll make your own seed tape. So what we're going to do is use some of the easiest things available to make seed tapes with. And right now we're doing like the paper towels, which most paper towels really conveniently have these nice patterns on them. And like this one, about every one of these circles is about 1.5 inches apart. If you're the engineering type, we've got some rulers on the table, and if the seed packet that you're wanting to use says to space things 2 inches apart, you can measure out and space them that way. But you can pretty much just eye things and put your marks on these. So paper towels, 2-ply is what we usually get. Most of them already come 2-ply. And once we've marked our spots on this for our spacing, so for instance, this would be 2 inches apart. These are 1 inch apart. These are about 1.5 inches apart. So depending on what your seed requires, you can just choose from whatever that is. And then once we've marked with our felt marker on that, probably gonna have somebody with fingernails and better eyes than me. Then we can just peel that apart. Maybe you can do that. Can you peel that apart and separate those? Yes. I could do it if I put my glasses on. You can separate that apart, and then we have 2 for 1, and it's really thin. So with the seed tapes, we are gonna do exactly what Sandra was talking about, and we're gonna do our spacing according to what it says to do within the row. Thank you. So we've marked once, and we've gotten 2 pieces of what is our potential seed tape out of that. So when we look at the back of our seed packet, and I've got some lettuces and carrots and some beets and stuff on this table here. If you guys have some seeds that you would rather use than what's on the table, that's just fine. But those really fine seed are what we usually see on seed tape and what we like to put on the seed tape. But you can go as big as like chard and beets, because it's easy to do and it's easy to put down in the garden. You know how it is, even with something as big as that. You have them in your hands and you're trying to get one spaced every so often, and then you lose 3, and then you're trying to seed the seed in the garden bed and pick out 2, and you just shove it farther in the soil. So even something as big as that, you're not going to mess with peas or corn or anything that size. So the types of seeds that, besides just the small and the fine seeds that we might want to put on seed tapes, it might be some heirloom seed or some native seed that you have collected responsibly, something that we don't have very many of, and so we want to be very careful that we don't waste them. And so making seed tapes is a way to assure that too. And the seed tapes is something, I can do this now. I can save these for a year, 2 years, however long I want. As long as the seed stays viable. If it's seed that stays viable. Tomatoes are great. You were talking about some from 2000. What? I don't know. I planted tomato seeds that are 25 years old and still have at least 50% germination. So if they have been kept in a nice, cool, dry environment, man, some of those will last forever. So some other ones, some very expensive seeds, you're going to want to be pretty careful with. I was just looking in one of my catalogs that came, I love this time of year. One of these catalogs, and it was a common flower. I think it was gomphrena. What's the other name for gomphrena? I know. Globe flower. This one, new variety, so this is a way, it's a new release. You know how expensive new releases are? I have to put my glasses on. You're getting 10 seeds for $4.95 plus shipping. Okay, so you're probably gonna wanna be pretty careful with those. They're pretty tiny seeds. So if it's something that's really expensive or really rare, seed tapes are a great way to do it. So what we're going to do, the toilet paper is pretty easy. You can just do whatever if you want to do. Oh, a calculator there, imagine that. 2 per square, 5 per square, depending on, again, what seed you are doing. You don't need, this is so thin that you don't need to separate them out in the plies. Use the cheapest toilet paper. The stuff that, if you have your own septic system, you should be using. Don't use the thick, heavy stuff. Use the stuff that they were, say go camping with. The other thing that they often call it is the brown thumb TP, and you know why. Okay, it's the real thin stuff. So anyway, so those are all you need, and then some Elmer's glue or any school safe glue. So that's non-toxic. Your kids can eat it. It does not affect the germination or the viability of the seed. So an Elmer's glue or a school glue will work really good. Otherwise, we're going with if you have some heavy-duty wax paper or some parchment paper, but I like something that's pretty heavy like this. This is like what's in the lining in cracker boxes, in cereal boxes, because we're going to lay these out on your tables, and when you're doing it at home on your table, put the paper towel or the toilet paper on here, mark with a felt mark the spots, your measurements of where you want to put the seed, and that will keep it from going through to your table. And then also when we start applying the little drops of glue, it will go through onto this, but it won't stick. Whereas if you were just using like newspaper or something like that, then your seed tapes would stick to that. So I hope we have enough of that. If not, we'll cut some in half so everybody can try it. So what else do we need to go over before we get started? Okay, so a small little dish. We'll just pour out a little bit of seed, whatever kind of seed you want, in one of these little cups. When you get your paper towels or your toilet paper, right on the edge of it somewhere, what the variety is that you're planting on this, on your seed tape. And then you will, now here, let me get some of these again up here. So, I think I've got some that I actually got some seed hooked onto here. So here I've got some different lettuces. Like my top 2 rows, I've got salad bowl lettuce. My center 3 rows, I've got green oak leaf. My bottom one, I've got a red French lettuce. And so when I get ready to plant these either outside in my garden bed, or if I'm going to start them inside so that then I can take them outside and transplant them, what I can do is I can say, okay, well, I only want 2 rows of this. Then with my scissors, even though I have a mixture there, I can just cut off what I want there, however much I want. If I'm gonna be planting a large amount of something, say I'm gonna plant a whole flat of Amish paste tomatoes because I'm gonna do a lot of canning plus some drying of tomatoes this year, or I'm gonna share a lot with friends. I might want to plant a whole flat and get that started so that I'll have that to transplant out. So I might have them planted this close together. We're talking an inch apart. I might have those seeds planted that close together because I'm gonna have them in here. I'm gonna tear that apart. Oh, see how convenient that is for a 1 foot space if you were gonna do square foot gardening out in your garden bed? You just plant that and there's your 1 square foot. Not that closely together. But this would be like for tomatoes or flower seeds, which is now, many flower seeds take a long, long time to germinate. So you can be doing this right now at home if you wanted to start getting some things germinating in the house. So I can lay this out. You can plant several varieties in here, gonna mark it in here, and then because this is gonna be transplanted out, as soon as this germinates, the reason I plant so close together, as soon as those first true leaves come through, I'm gonna be, just gently picking those out and transplanting them into probably like little 2 by 2, individual grow cups, or if you do the cell type thing, something like that. So I can plant much closer if I'm gonna be transplanting out of something. But if we're gonna be planting in the garden, directly into the garden with these seed tapes, then we want them spaced according to what we're gonna be doing in our garden, whether that's wide row planting, and maybe we want to plant in like what you see 5, 2 on the corners, 1 in the center, and just do a row like that, a wide row plant like that, and just do it all on a long roll of toilet paper, or just line up several of these like this and put in block planting or in wide rows. So when we're planting in something like this or out in the garden, once we've planted, we're gonna cover these. These are gonna be fine seeds, and that's always one of my biggest troubles, is probably getting the correct amount of soil on top of these fine seeds. You can't see them, and so it's like, okay, did I put a 1/4 inch on there, or did I put an inch on there? But when they're on the paper towel or toilet paper, you can see it, and you can start sprinkling the soil over the top, and as soon as you can no longer see that white, you probably got it just the right depth. And then just make sure your soil is damp ahead of time so that you don't have to do very much watering over the top. You're gonna want a very, they call it a rose, you put on the end of your little watering can, so it just barely sprinkles over the top. But this also, by having this on these seed tapes that you've made, it keeps from washing your seeds away. This paper towel and the toilet paper are holding them probably until they germinate, and then the paper towel breaks down. I mean, it is totally gone by the time those roots are really down into the soil, so that works great for that. So, and then if you're planting any, like that. So, what do you think? More information, or can we kind of get started? And if you have questions while we get started, we can answer questions when we're going. Okay. So, what I would suggest is that, I don't know how we want to start this and how many people want to do this. If you want to, maybe come up like 1 table at a time and grab either the seed you have that you want or one of these types, put in, you don't need to take a whole packet, we can pour in some carrot seed into these little cups. Okay, the glue is, I didn't really complete my thought, did I? So rather than put the glue in the cups, what you might want to do, as soon as you get your paper towel or your toilet paper, whatever you're doing,
and you get marked on your spacing, then maybe we could like just send the glue bottle down there, or we could put glue in some of those cups too and use the toothpicks for that. But usually what we do is we put just a dot of glue on top of each one of our marks. And maybe you only want to do half of your paper towel to get started with. And then just a small dot of glue. And then once that glue is there and you've got your seed in one of your little cups, just take the end of your toothpick, barely stick your toothpick in that dot of glue, put it into the little thing of seed, and you're probably going to pick up 2 or 3 seeds when you do that with your little dot of glue. That's okay, you don't have to pick up just one at a time, because you're going to get really fast at this once you've done your first one. Because then as soon as you bring it back to where you've got your dots of glue on your measured off seed tape, you can just kind of barely touch that one seed to that dot of glue, and then just kind of roll your toothpick away, and then there's your other seed is still sticking on there. Put it on that next dot, and you just can usually go like 2 or 3 at a time before you go back in with a little more glue and pick up some more of your seeds. So it really, you'd think this is really time consuming, but it's not. I mean, you can get several of these made while you're waiting for that chocolate sauce on top of your stove to come to just the right consistency. I've done it. So there's a lot of things. Or have the children or the grandchildren read a book to you while you're doing this, or vice versa, you read to them while they're doing it. So
Does it have to be water-based glue, Jody?
it's just school glue, so I'm sure it's water-based because it totally dissolves away and it lets the seed germinate right down through it. Yeah, so